This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
This is going to be such a special show today. I've been looking forward to this. My guest, a very special guest who I feel a kindred heart with. She started many multi-million-dollar companies, and she's creator of how to be the woman's school. And we're going to talk all about that. And she's actually not just standing up for women, but empowering and training them, not just in the country, but all over the world. And so let's bring her right on. January Donovan, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, I'm so grateful, so honored. I love your joy. And so thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my heart here today. So I'm excited.
Great. Tell us about the woman's school that you have. And you also have a free course, right? How to be a woman, freecourse.com. We're going to put all the links in the end for that, for sure.
You know, it's so funny. I've been training women for 25 years and I did it for free for 15 years. I just believed in it. Honestly, it came from my own wound and lack of training on how to be a woman. And we all assume just because we're born a woman, we know how to be a woman. We know now through data, but even just state of our culture, we don't. And so four or 5 years ago, my husband said, Junior, do you want to reach thousands or millions? I was like, well, obviously I'm passionate about this work. And he said, you have to build a business around it. So anyways, we kind of I think there was such a hunger for depth and meaning and really truth, honestly. And not just personal development for the sake of developing oneself, but personal development for the sake of contributing your value to the world, that we just went to 40 countries. And so that's really kind of where it all began. But then it kind of took a turn. Obviously, COVID, it was interesting because people were like, why do you want to go to school how to be a woman? And it's interesting that in the last couple of years, ever since our Supreme Court justice said, I don't know what a woman is, I can't define it, the woman's school event became really relevant, Cliff.
It was
Because
needed. It was a need for sure.
honestly, like I could have not planned it that way. It was all of a sudden, it was like, wait, we have an existential crisis that we don't even know identity crisis of what a woman is. And so I really had to kind of, because so much of my training is personal interior development, mindset and skill set. And then it took a turn to say, well, I don't want to just do mindset and skill set, that doesn't define and honor the value of women. So I had to draw a line in the sand and say, listen, we're a woman's school and we define a woman as female and we
Right.
honor men and we think we're complementary being and we're both, really an important part of a flourishing society. So I really kind of had my courage walk, and I cannot be grateful enough that not only are we needing the school of how to be a woman for such a time as this, but I think there's never been a more beautiful time to be a woman. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I liked you did a couple of videos of shorts where you were really supporting all women that were standing up. And I even contributed and I joined. I did a podcast for Riley Gaines. I did just supporting her. Where is everybody not standing up for this? This is something that is, there's no waffling as to what side you're on this thing. Why I just couldn't understand. And we can all come together on this issue without hesitation.
Well, you would think we would. I just actually met Riley Gaines
Did
last.
you really? Oh my God, I
I
would love to
did.
have her on. I love her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's special. I'll just say,
Right.
like, I train thousands of women, and she's 23. The wisdom that comes out from her is, I think, God. I mean, truly, she's super down to earth, and
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll have her on our podcast as well. But it's kind of baffling, honestly, and it's the state of our culture that nobody's rallying behind something as foundational as the definition of what a woman is and women in men's sports. I mean, it's so telling of the moral state of our culture that something so sensical has become sort of controversial,
Yeah.
Cliff. And I told her, I was asking her a question. I said, where do you get your courage? She's like,
Yeah.
well, she said it's from her faith. Because to be honest with you, I feel like in the last 6 months, and maybe this has been for you, I think there is a shift. What I
Yes.
mean by that,
Yeah.
I think courage beats courage. We had sort of the initial people that kind of spoke out and they were demonized for it, like they would. And then they, I think, opened the door for greater courage. And you'll see people that are saying, I'm taking a stand for life. I'm a patriot. I am, I believe in the definition of man and a woman. And I think we are awakening really the silent majority, in my opinion, that it's not this like right or left. I think it's just logic thinking.
Right.
And I think, and I think it's written in our hearts. That's
Yes.
what I think it is. It's just finding the courage to say, I am going to take a stand against it. I think there's a small minority that's loud, that's confusing everyone. But honestly, like if I can come in this podcast and I can share one thing, just as you guys, it's like the silent. There's no more time for silence.
Yeah, you were in one of your videos, just kind of going to the point you just made. You made the point that it seems like that voice is the majority. They're just too loud right now, and we need to counteract. There is actually a larger common sense group, and that group, of course, it tends to be, I think, like you and I probably are, that we're the kind that are respectful. We're quiet in the library. We just do these things automatically. So it's not in our nature to to take a forceful stand, and now it's becoming kind of forced upon us to take that posture, right?
Yes. And I think that silence is now complicit, and you're absolutely
Correct.
right.
Complicit. I like that. Yeah, it's complicit. Silence is complicit.
Yeah, but I think that for people who have a moral compass, we don't necessarily want to make a big fuss.
Yes.
There is a deep interior respect for the other person, also for ourselves, that we're not like, hey, there's even just the way we present ourselves in a way that's respectful. And so really the fight is forced upon us, like
Yeah.
it's shoved down. And I don't think we have a choice. And I think we're obligated to defend it. Otherwise, we are going to see the next generation and the future generation completely just, I think, wiped away. Men, women. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't, I think, have a choice, Cliff. And that's why, I feel like I'm speaking out against the radical feminist movement, which
Yeah.
it's like we need the men.
No, we
Stop
do.
the men. Like, you know, the fact that I'm here as a mom of 8 is because of good men. But they have like put all these men in one category, paid, the patriarchy.
Yes.
And we have lost a sense of kind of, in a world of individuality, we've lost almost the individual person. I mean, you've got this like just ironies happening all over the place and conflicting beliefs, but I'm like, we need the real men and those honorable men to be honored
Yeah.
and not devalued and silenced and afraid to speak up against these women who've really in some ways become like men in a way that's not a good version of men.
Yeah. There's a way to be bold without being a bully, and do the right thing without it being toxic masculinity. And men, I know all these hardcore men, right? These meat-eating crazy guys. And then I'm thinking, how can these men are sitting at swim meets in the audience while the biological male is in the locker room with their daughters. And I'm thinking, I can't believe people aren't holding these men back. And I don't know, is that baffling to you? I just wondered.
It's baffling to me. And honestly, I will say that maybe part of that influence is actually in the radical feminist movement.
Yeah.
There was a time where it was so loud in the 80s that if you spoke up, you will be demonized. You will be really kind of almost ostracized, like, oh, you don't support women's movement. And I think that became almost kind of an epidemic, but it was a silent epidemic. And so men were afraid to sort of speak up. They wanted to be supportive of women. It was a trend, like, we want to follow the trend. I also think that it's baffling to me that, men are not an uproar and say, stop it. Like, and I just want, and that's why I think women, we've got to start celebrating and empowering men and say,
Yes.
we need
I agree. I'll say one thing about this craziness is that it has garnered some awareness, and even myself, I'm researching these things now, right? Where normally I wouldn't even be bothered. I'm involved in other things, but so I was looking at, because not only with the Riley Gaines, then there was a recent male who he just won a women's golf tournament here in Florida. And so I wanted to research that before I did a podcast on it. So I was just shocked that the LPGA before 2010, you had to be a biological male before you could compete in any LPGA tournaments, even the qualifiers leading up to a professional tournament. And after 2010, well, if you did these things, it's okay. If you had hormones for 4 months and you did, I don't know why they took that stand, or maybe who was behind that, or maybe there's money behind it.
There is money. I think money is behind it. And
Yeah.
if you go down the research, and this was something I didn't speak out against, Cliff, honestly. You know, my
Yeah.
work is life in women. Like, to me,
Yeah.
women need to have life from within. And
Yeah.
but so my work has kind of taken me to take a stand and say, oh, right now, if you look at Planned Parenthood, which is obviously they're the number one kind of abortion providers, they realize the writing on the wall is that, you know, with the recent scan, and they're seeing more people are kind of saying, well, evidence scientifically is telling us that maybe life starts at conception. I think they're starting to see the writing on the wall. So there's
Yes.
shift their strategy. Now they're focusing on the transgender movement, and that is now their new cash cow.
Yes.
And they've
Man.
replaced their buildings that were abortion buildings now to, you know, transition buildings, because now you not only have a one-time abortion, well, multiple for some women, but also now you've got somebody who's hooked into the, you know, the pharmaceutical company for years. And
Yes.
so it's money.
No, you know, I'm
And
glad you brought that up, because I don't know if people are connecting the fact that this was kind of so in supporting these surgeries and whatnot, of course, then they're requiring the prescribed medication to go along with that. And that's the connection with the pharmaceuticals. And if you'll notice, a lot of and they don't always put it out there, but a lot of these latest shootings of these people who had the trans, they're on those medications, right? And
it's just a tragedy. What I think the biggest culprit to the feminist movement are the children. I mean, I'm sorry, the biggest, I would say, the losers of the feminist movement are the children. And that's kind of what we've been seeing, is that there's a lot of confusion that's happened, and now our children are suffering. They're in medication. They're, you know, the moms and the dads are maybe kind of not understanding the relationship. And now we've got children that are confused about their gender. And honestly, I just think it's unbelievable and nonsensical that this is, I mean, your average person who is thinking logically can say, like, no, you can't drive till you're 16. You really probably shouldn't have hormone blockers at 9, 11, or mutilate yourself. Your frontal lobe is not complete until you're 25 years old. Like, it's just so disordered. And I was actually studying yesterday kind of group thinking mentality and what happens, and how intellectual people get sucked into these ideologies because they just want to be part of something, sort of a new fad thinking. And this new fad thinking of like, well, we're behind the transgender movement. It's a progressive movement. I mean, I don't think, in my opinion, it can sustain itself. I think there's enough uproar, but you've got the detransitioners. You've got, I mean, they're just
the detransition. Oh my God, yeah.
Mhm.
Creates a whole new industry, a whole nother industry, the detransition.
I mean, it's really, and honestly, like for me, the last 3 years has been, I would say the first 2 years of COVID was grief. And what I mean by that for myself, it's the grief that what I thought our government was, what I thought our pharmaceutical company, what I thought our CIA was, what I thought was, it wasn't. So when I say grief, it's like this sort of I'm an immigrant. Like, I came here when I was 11. So we looked at the United States as this sort of Mecca.
Yeah, where from? What's your heritage?
I'm from the Philippines.
Okay.
And so, you know, I didn't see my parents for 5 years straight so we could get a legal
Oh my God.
visa. That is a sacrifice that most people ought to do so that it doesn't get handed to them. I believe in America because we fought for it. I had to wrestle with the fact that I'm Filipino, but I'm American, and that I'm American. Like, that's why I say I am, because this country has given me, it's a privilege that I know the Philippines would have never given me the privilege. So that's a different topic.
Yeah, it kind of brings tears in my eyes because, my wife was born in Cuba and came here when she was 6. And then when I met her dad and mom, her dad, who had to sign over everything in 1971 to come here, right? Because he saw the pictures of America and freedom. If he saw Ronald Reagan, he cried. And so I began to become awakened to my obligation to be more patriotic. I look at, I wasn't, I took it for granted, right? And so she is so sensitive to this is communism. That's what they do. And so and so your story resonates with me. I had to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It tells me how much you love your wife because it chokes you up to even hear that story. And I
Yeah.
really honor that because you're defending a woman and her story,
Yeah.
and I think I just want to champion you. And it's,
thank
it's, it's really, it's really time for men and women to work together. And it's really time for
Yeah.
men
Come together for this.
you had to come together, but to lead. And it's like, and I think America is a great banner behind really a lot of the moral principles that I think it's time to take a stand in, whether it's, free speech, whether it's
Yeah.
honoring the border, whether it's honoring a man and a woman, the family nucleus, the definition of what a woman is, the complementarity of both a woman and a man. Like I had heard this podcast from Jordan Peterson, and it kind of broke my mind,
Oh, and
honestly.
thank you for supporting his daughter too, because I love her too, and she's courageous. And I saw your short with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Michaela, right? Michaela, I think she is.
Yeah, and they've endured so much, and I think Jordan Peterson has led the charge in the intellectual conversation. It's kind of hard to refute him. He's so
Yes.
intelligent and he's so astute. And, like you need to have your notepad to listen to him.
You
but
do, yeah.
I'm just grateful for him, and that's really a deep gratitude.
Me too. Yeah.
that I feel like for him, because I think he had to be demonized for all of us to wake up behind
Yes,
him and say,
you're right.
enough, and so he became, I think, that warrior who everybody said, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying, and then all of a sudden we are now pushing back behind him. So anyways, that's that. But he talked about enlightenment is dead. And I thought it was fascinating because he said, we now have so much data that a civilization without a moral compass who thinks I can do whatever I want and I'm so enlightened that I am the God is no longer sustainable.
That's right.
And I just think that's powerful because America was based on biblical principles, Judeo-Christian principles. And I think that our freedom in America, to me, is God's given freedom. Like,
Yes, I do. It is.
it is, and it even goes back into, they actually talk about how communism is traced back really even in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where anyways, that's a sorry, but the reason why I decided to sort of speak up, because to me, I don't think that we can save our country if we're not all on board. I really don't.
Yeah.
And it's the last stop. It's the last stop.
Yeah, you divide and fall. Yeah, I agree with that so much. Oh my God, you sparked so many thoughts. I want to ask you if you experience this at all, just because this baffled me. So my wife and I, we post a lot because, well, I used to do stand-up. I did stand-up comedy for 25 years.
I think it's great. I just love
yeah.
it.
So of course I kept, I was always interacting because I would invite people to shows and I need to have a social platform. So we would just post what we were doing. And so, I know Planned Parenthood brought up. So we have a summer place in 1,000 Islands in upstate New York. Little did I know most of the island people they're very liberal, and I guess they're part of the Democrat. But, we never talked about these things because we were at our summer place and we interact with all each other and we really don't talk about these things. And maybe because my wife and I, we were in Los Angeles where things are kind of a little crazy. So we were always open to discussion about whatever, but we never talked politics with our island friends. And we used to hear them while we were maybe making dinner at our place, they would bring up Planned Parenthood, can you believe they're trying to deny, health services for women? And we're like, oh my God, I hope we don't talk about this. So we never talked about it. But of course, so we went to the inauguration for President Trump in 2016. So we go to Washington and we take pictures, and everything else. And next thing you know, there was groups of people that were not interacting with us anymore. They were like ghosting us. People that we had helped them in many ways. We hadn't asked them for it. And then I asked some people off to the side, I hope that's nothing to do with like politics. And they go, oh no, it is. I go, I can't believe I was really hurt by it. That's one of my weaknesses, a little too sensitive. Did you experience any pushback when you just were speaking up for what your beliefs were?
That's a great question. So I think 2 points. The number one, I honestly feel like that we have lost the sense of, or the ability, the training, the skill of breaking bread with people of different
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yes.
And it's like we've really kind of made sort of this camps of homogeneous society where like I can only be your friend and talk to you if everything that you believe in I sign up for, and
Yeah.
the
Right.
moment I don't, you are now ostracized in my life. We don't know how to come together as a community. We don't have
Yeah.
know how to have a conversation and say, listen, you might not agree with everything that I believe in, Cliff, but that doesn't mean I can't laugh with you or break bread with you. Is there ever a place, and the where we can just sit down being like, I don't agree with you, but I respect it, tell me more. Like,
Yeah.
imagine what that would be like. So I think that's number one. That's a lost art, and which is why I think we have to go back to the basics in America. So that's number one. I think number two, my pushback, I've been doing this kind of, my audience is conservative.
You're right.
So actually my pushbacks is sometimes from conservatives.
Oh,
I and I
okay.
Okay, so let
Wow.
me just explain to you why.
Yeah. Tell me
Conservatives
that.
maybe who have faith, who's telling me, January, why don't you just preach the gospel? Why don't you just, you know, and I keep telling them, I said, we all have an individual call, even though I am a woman of faith and that is what drives me. I have to do what I'm called to do. What I'm called to do is to be in the fight of the culture war and train women in the heart of the culture war. So my pushback is almost people who are actually against personal development, which is kind
Right.
of
Yeah.
and I'll tell you the reason behind that, because the personal development world, the way it's sometimes advertised and is that it's about me. It's about flash. It's about, and so it's so much kind of like what I can do for myself, which some people do that, maybe is a truth. But I think that if the alternative is to not develop yourself.
Yeah. And let me,
And
if I can just insert something there. And what I always say is, listen, I understand when people say, "Oh, it's about you're selfish," but listen, if I if I learn how to communicate better, if I learn how to listen more, if I learn how to be a better person, and I grow in my communication and controlling or eliminating anger, you benefit from it. My family benefits from it. The community benefits from that. So that selfishness ends up feeding these other great things. But anyways, I'm sorry, I
No,
had
but
to
I,
jump
I
in.
think you're absolutely right. And I think those are two radical, virtues right in the middle. That's what
Right.
Aristotle tells
Yeah.
us. And so when you think about, I'm against personal development or I'm everything personal development, what I think is that the reason why you develop yourself so you can give more of your best self.
Right. Yeah.
But if you're against the personal development and then you just think that life is just happening to you and not for you, there's no responsibility and accountability for you to grow yourself, to develop who you are. It's like the parable of the talents, then how can even God use you? How could you
Right.
even uh, you know, be a citizen in society when all you want to do is sort of hide behind your own cocoon, make sure your life is, away from the world? That is now no way to live and no way to be a responsible citizen. And I would argue that that could be the reason why evil grows, because good people are afraid of developing the right skill set to speak up, to find the courage to develop themselves so that they actually have greater capacity to fight for truth, beauty, and goodness. So that's, to me, there. I'm not judging and saying, I'm just saying it could be that that's the reason why evil grows, when good people stay silent, who are afraid to develop themselves. On the radical extreme as well, it's like I'm developing myself so I can be full of myself. Obviously, that's an unfulfilling life. Both are unfulfilling, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
And it's like, let me just make as much money as I can and be the best that I can, but never to service of another. And we know a lot of people, Kim Kardashian talks about her depression, her a
Yeah.
lot of people who've achieved great things and their life is a hot mess. And I think both extremes, and I think that's why we need to order our desires and our character and go back into some of the basic, is that the purpose of developing yourself is to give more of your best self. By not developing yourself, you rob not just yourself, but the world of your gift.
Yeah. I agree. Someone said today, silence is complicit. You said that. I wrote it down. I think that is so true, man. And God, what else? Oh, have you heard this pastor Jeff Durbin? Do you know that
Jeff,
guy?
maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
Check
I
him
listened
out because
to
he intimidates me because he knows the Bible so well. He actually goes and he goes to these abortion clinics and he talks in a very respectful way. He never gets upset. but he's able to talk from scripture in a very, and he tells them, listen, respectfully, I appreciate your passion, but I want to tell you where you're wrong on this. And he tells them, because they start getting upset and they yell at him, well, you want to destruct, you're after the woman, you want to, and he goes, no, I want the death penalty for the rapist, not for the baby. And so he goes from a place of, no, I'm for, it's just, comes from such a good place, but he's kind of brought some people around, and his whole purpose is, and maybe that's where you and I are doing the right thing. His whole purpose is not always to change the mind of the person he's, discussing with, but people who are going to be watching that video or other people from outside, they learn, right?
Yeah. And I think we're all called to different things. And I think that's part of us really asking ourselves and God, where do you want me to, to grow, to plant and grow? And so in my opinion, sometimes our world has become so godless, and part of it is systemically they took God out of the school system, that a normal conversation and me speaking scripture to a woman who's about ready to commit abortion or who's an OnlyFans model isn't going to land nowhere, in my opinion.
Right, yeah.
And that's why I think you've got this middle ground of personal development that tells them, hey, this is about you. But as they mature, they realize this life is about you, is actually not going to be happy. It's really you, so that you can grow more and give more. So I think sometimes we do a disservice by shoving gospel. And obviously my faith is so important to me.
Right.
We have to think strategically about where where people are coming from, and somebody who's so wounded that they cannot hear that what they need at that moment is empathy. What they need at that moment is a conversation. What they need at the moment is a tender heart, not a judgment, not condemning them. And I don't know exactly what he does in every, situation. I'm not saying that it's not important work, because I think the gospel is to be preached, but I love St. Francis. There's a saint called St. Francis. And
yeah. Oh, I know him well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And so he says, preach the gospel and if necessary, use words.
Words. I say that all the time. I preach the gospel all day long, and sometimes I use words. I love that. Yeah.
I love that even more. Sometimes I use words. But see, here's the thing. How can you integrate the gospel in your life without personal development?
You can't. No, I don't think you can. Yeah.
Really, because I'm a theology major in philosophy, and I sat through my theology classes and I thought, how do you live that? Like, how do you live justice? How do you live temperance? How do you live this virtue? Your average woman is not thinking, I need to be temperate. They're not. They're literally trying to say, like, what dinner am I going to make? How am I going to talk to my husband?
That's right.
About how
Yeah.
What am I going to do to, in my church group or in my community? What job? We have got to take, I would say, scripture and what I call use it in parable language, which is really what woman's
That's why
is.
Jesus did that, because he knew these fishermen could understand. I'm going to talk to him in fish terms. Yeah.
But that's the truth. And so what I'm saying to you is that we're called for different things. And I think that
I agree.
Even if the truth, I think it's a parable language.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're saying, no, you defend the sovereignty of your country. You defend your constitution. In some ways that is a parable, because all that is rooted in biblical principles.
Right.
You defend the definition of what a man is. That is, just based on, and I think that a lot of the fight that Jordan Peterson is doing, Cliff, is based on natural law.
Yes.
Which is great to me, to kind of like cast the intellectual conversation of people that maybe don't have God in their life.
Right. Yeah.
But can still have reason. And so, what I've also seen is that I'm studying marketing, and it wasn't my choice, but because this is part of the work, I've realized that it used to be a lot of the personal development people were really growing fast. Like if you look at your personal development, Ed Mylett, I spoke with him actually on the same stage, had the honor of speaking with
Don't tell me that. I love Ed Mylett.
Yes, he's actually awesome, and he's actually a man of faith. I shared the same stage with him, which I really don't even like the stage. It's not, but I've had to do it. And John Maxwell.
And he grew up in Diamond Bar, California, which is where I lived for a while, and I was a deputy in LA County. So and his first job was in San Dimas, where I also worked. So we have a lot in common, I think. And I think he's left-handed, so we have some things in common. I want to meet him for sure. Yeah.
He's a very powerful speaker and So um, it was great. It was so funny because I spoke between John Maxwell and Ed Mylett, and John Maxwell
God,
is very,
God, that's
like
awesome.
down. Oh no, very thank you. I feel honored. I'm very grateful, but you know, I do it because I believe in this work, and
Yeah,
I don't
right.
really like to speak. I don't even really love a public life, but I feel like it's the call of the season. So, but thank you for
Yeah,
that affirmation. But I'm saying is that my point that I was going to say is that a lot of the personal development, I think, has the interest of it has shifted, and it's the people that are actually almost speaking up against the evil that's happening are skyrocketing. Like
right.
there's
Yeah,
almost a turn in our country, and people are now interested in things that are political, culture war, in a way that wasn't present, I would say, 4 years ago, like pre-COVID.
yeah,
Um, the personal development. I remember Jeff. Oh gosh, he created. No, no, what's his name? Oh, it'll come to me. He did Creative Live. Creative Live is like his 10, 12
yeah.
years old. Jeff Jarvis.
Jarvis.
Anyway,
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, he created Creative Live, 10,000 students in the first online school. And I remember he said something. He said, we're going to see a shift that entrepreneurs and personal development is going to be the rock star of the future. And it was
yeah.
true. Like he
Boy,
said
he's
that 12
right.
years ago. And, we're seeing Brendan Burchard, we're seeing a lot of Mel Robbins, right? You're seeing Jay Shetty. But I think the rock stars of tomorrow are the Patriots.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
there's like
Yeah.
another shift that's happening. I don't know if you follow Patrick but David.
Every day. We just watched him for 2 hours. I watch him every day. Absolutely.
So
Vinny,
he
Tom, Adam, of course. Adam was losing his voice terribly today. Yeah.
Oh, he's so funny to me. I saw his the transgender thing funny of value to him, and I think so.
Oh my God, I love those guys, and I learned so much. Tom is so big on the numbers, and I learned about what's tied to these interest rates and what's happening, and then Vinny, who he was a comedian like me, or he still is, but I mean, he just saw what was happening and moved from California as we did. So, PBD, we're big fans. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So what I'm saying is that they skyrocketed.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I remember when he only had 600 followers.
Yes. But do you see what I mean? Like, I think that's what I think happened to me. Like, I was teaching mindset and skill set, and I think the last sort of 4 or 5 months, people are saying, "Oh, now she's taken aside," and I think that people are looking for leadership
Right.
that are rooted in truth and a moral compass, and those are the new rock stars of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And essentially, there's that quote, strong society create, what is it? Oh my gosh, it's so good. Do you
Oh
know
yeah,
that
yeah,
quote?
yeah. Creates weak people, and weak people
Yes,
create bad
yes.
times, and bad times create strong people, and strong people create good times. Yeah, yeah.
And
Love
so
it.
I think that we're at the end of that. I think our society is
Yes.
now forced to create strong men and women. So I think
Yeah.
that is where we are. That's why I think it's the most exciting time to be a woman, because we now have data that, last 150 years, in spite all the freedom that women now have in the West, women are more enslaved. Now
Right.
we have data from Stanford and Yale University where women are more depressed, more stressed, more overwhelmed, more anxious. And also men are kind of saying we're tired of being emasculinized, we're tired of being the labels of masculine, toxic masculinity. And I think we're seeing more men becoming more conservative, ages 18 to
Yeah.
40,
You're right.
no longer putting up with this, like, I am a woman, hear me roar. So, and then, but we also have, we also know that prior to the feminist movement, women had no place in society.
You're
We
right.
can't go back to that.
No.
But we can't also go back to this idea of I am a woman, hear me roar, radical feminism. It's no longer salvageable or sustainable. They are now leading the charge of now taking women's rights. So
Yeah.
that's why, to me, it's reclaiming womanhood in modern society. Now it's training women how to be a woman in modern society.
Yes.
It's understanding how to work together with men and bringing back family nucleus, bringing back our country's sovereignty. How do we do that? That is our way forward. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
We've
Good.
we've got an election to win.
We gotta. And everybody tells me it's either or, and I think it is really. And I love that you're into. I got really into. You'll know all this because I got into philosophy, and so I was studying all these philosophers because I always take I've been to 2 Tony Robbins seminars, and so I think, well, I see what somebody said that long. I keep going back in time. When did this really originate? And so I was studying the Stoics and all these things, and I was thinking, wow, well, that's not really Christian. Maybe I shouldn't be studying that. But then, Thomas Aquinas, he studied Aristotle, and they attacked him for it. And he said, hey, all truth is God's truth, so it's okay if I study that. And he stood up for himself, right? I just love that. And you'll know that being a theologian.
That's my critics, that, just to be honest with you. So if I study Joe Dispenza, or I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, so I love his heart, like,
Yes.
and I get criticized. And I always say, I'm like, St. Thomas Aquinas and Augustine, they studied Plato. Plato did not,
Exactly.
But it's amazing though. Then that's why I think the fear comes in. The fear because you don't know your value. Why
Yeah.
would speaking with somebody who's doesn't share your value cause you fear?
Right.
Fear. Yeah, I mean, fear of the unknown. It's the opposite of what God tells you, as
That's
a matter of
right.
fact.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
But if we don't know our value as women or our faith, then we're always going to be living in fear, as opposed to, this fierce idea that I can break bread with people who don't believe in the same things I believe in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not afraid that they're going to what? Influence me, because I am strong. My interior life is strong. And
Right.
that's where I think we need to move forward. I think the two radical extremes are not serving.
Yeah. That's right. It's funny because I follow this pastor, Jack Hibbs. Do you know him?
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
I had been following him, and then he did that prayer for Congress, right? And they came after him like you wouldn't believe, right? Because our Father out in heaven, and they just said, "Oh, he used the gender." It's just, but and I love because what he does is he makes the Bible talking. It's today. This is what's happening today. This scripture is happening right now, and he ties what's happening. And so I really get enlightened by him every time he goes to these scriptures that he says, see what's happening today, and we need to be paying attention. But
Yeah, and I think the role of men and women, even in understanding the scripture and the Bible, I think is beautiful, because I think we have to, as women, do a better job incarnating scripture. And what I mean by
yeah,
that, not that we don't live it, but you know, I think women today uh, really need to reassess how they're showing up on a daily basis, and maybe study and observe how kind of the feminist movement, the radical feminist movement, have infiltrated their life
right, yeah,
in the most micro level. Let me give you an example. I did a story or something about, boys shouldn't be wrestling with girls, like your children. Like I have 4 boys and 4 girls, and I don't let
yeah,
my boys wrestle with my girls. And the comments are like, "What's the big deal? Why can't they wrestle with their sisters?" And in those micro moments, Cliff, we've forgotten that it starts there. The
yeah,
gender movement and the desensitization of the fact that women need to have reverence in the way they treat themselves, and it's different from men, and vice versa. Even in those micro moments, we've desensitized ourselves. Like, no, I would not allow my son, who's stronger than my little girls, wrestle with them. And I need to, from the moment of conception, treat a woman and a lady like a woman. And I don't raise my children, my boys, the same as my girls. I speak to them differently. All that have seeped into our culture. We don't
yeah,
even think about it. We don't. We're so desensitized, and the idea that we can be both men and women, and we can be both, and you can have masculine energy and feminine energy, even that I think is confusing, because now you're saying to a woman you can have masculine energy, and it's like you're adding to the confusion, like
yeah,
you're
and
a woman or
yeah.
man.
It came up and I've known this, but it came up the other day when I was visiting my mom in upstate New York. I'm at the car rental place, and I already knew this, but then I heard her telling the guy, I know you you got to be 25 to rent a car like that, because they've already done the data. They know a boy's brain has not matured enough that they're going to allow them to rent a car, but we're going to be introducing to children, you can be a girl now. Do you want to have this operation? And we won't even tell your parents. This is criminal, right? I mean, it's just like, who's it? Oh
It's
my God.
criminal. Here's the thing too, like even at a young level, our education system, who I think, a lot of our teachers are women, um
Yes.
designed for girls. So you've got your boy who's very different from a girl, who's forced to sit down on a desk and then gets in trouble and gets put into medication. And, we kind of have to question what we're doing at a youngest, like a 3-year-old level, to say, like, boys and girls learn differently. Boys
Yes.
actually need more physical activity in order to actually learn. Our brains are actually, built differently from a very biological level. They just had this reel I thought was so good. And she's like, "Do you believe men and women are women?" She's like, "Yes, I do, because I'm a molecular biologist and I can see it under a microscope." And it was like so
Yes.
matter of fact. And so this is what I mean. It's like it's so infiltrated in our culture that men and women can be equal. Yes, equal, but different.
Equal but different. That's so true, man. That's, yeah.
Beautifully different. And stop sort of kind of this idea that it's just like one size fits all bathrooms are genderless. It's like stop. And I
Stop
think
it.
there
Yeah.
is a new fight for our reverence for the dignity of women. I think we're hungry for it. We just have no language
Yeah.
for it. And also I think there's deep desire for men to say, no, I want to be a man. Like, you're a cop. Like, can you imagine if you didn't have the courage to do what you're doing, or fight for that, I would say, role, because
Yeah.
you have to be front lines.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
who knew you? Like, it's not, and just as we need mothers, right? It's not that you can't nurture, because I think
That's
that's
right.
the primary role of women, is actually to nurture
Right.
society,
Yes.
and to nurture the heart of a man, to nurture the food, to nurture the children, to nurture her community, to nurture leadership. Very different than a man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we need, a man's role in society. It's a different form of leadership, but the problem is that, we have desensitized women to our ability to nurture. Not only that, women don't know how to receive. How do you keep giving without receiving?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what development is. You're receiving training, you're receiving. And so we're giving to everyone else from an empty cup. So our husbands are taking the
Yeah.
brunt of it.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. I've learned to, it was when I learned from Tony Robbins, right? Because, you start, as you know, the giving is so, you get so much more back. It's such a pleasure. Oh no, you treat people, and then when other people try to treat you, you tend to say no. And so then I've learned, no, I'm not going to rob them of the gift of giving. And so now I allow people to have that pleasure that I have. So it's one
Isn't
thing I
that
learned.
great? But
Yeah.
that's wisdom. That's really wise. And you would think that would be a common way to think about it, but I don't think it is,
Yeah.
especially
I don't
because
think it is.
we- we've defined a strong woman, Cliff, in our culture as somebody who does it all by herself.
Right.
She
Yeah.
doesn't need a man. She doesn't need help, which is why we have got, all-time high depression, postpartum, and
Oh,
anxiety for
I
women.
know. Yeah.
So women don't want to have doors open for them. I can fix my own car. I mean, yes, you can, but why wouldn't you receive it? I mean, do you see how the
Exactly. Yeah.
intention of this
Yeah.
sort of radical ideology is seeped into the everyday woman and man, and there's such a confusion, and which is why I think we need to reintroduce a new woman in our culture and a new man
Yeah.
that
That's,
understands their profound gift as both man and woman.
yeah. Yeah, and I agree. Something you said earlier. We have to bring God back into America. It's everywhere. Jack Hibbs said, they're attacking me. I'm looking at a picture of, I got Moses in front of me. I got In God We Trust behind me. All of Washington has all these symbols, and then they're attacking me. So, man, and I sometimes I say, well, look, as a country, we turned away. I can't imagine, even when I was a kid in school. So no matter the most terrible kid in school, the most bulliest kid, no one ever didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I never heard of that even happening, and we would have never considered not saying that every day over. And I think it's just a great. You learn those things, that we stand for the flag and what it stands for in the Republic and under one nation under God, because you keep repeating it, right? And it's so important. And
It's subconscious conditioning. I mean,
yes, yeah,
I can't stand like the basketball. I don't know who that person is. There was an article that said, who is it? The NBA is losing. I guess they don't have the same notoriety that they used to, thanks to Kaepernick and I
yes,
guess
oh yeah,
people. And like, stop it. And I want men to be like, stop this. Like, I want the referee, in my opinion, I'm like, why aren't the referees standing up? Why aren't the head of whatever NC, I don't know, the basketball team saying no?
NCAA. Yeah, I know it. I don't
Like,
understand. Well,
why
I'll
are we
say
giving?
one thing. I'll say one thing for sports, for the sports that I never watch it, but now I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. At least there's one area about basketball. It's the only area that they are hiring players based on meritocracy, because they're not going to allow you to say, well, we need 60% white to represent the demographics of society. Oh, no, we want the best basketball player. You right? It's the only thing.
I never thought about that. So there's no DEI there, I guess.
There's no, because it's this, right? Yeah.
That is so interesting. That's actually a really good argument.
We need meritocracy, don't we, in everything? My God, I mean, I can't believe, did you see that interview with Elon Musk and Don Lemon? And
can't really sit through some of that because sometimes it's
no, I couldn't watch the whole thing. I'm like you, I had to turn away, right? I couldn't, but Elon Musk's face was like, this is so, are you that stupid?
Yeah. Like, why are you asking a nonsensical question?
It's a nonsensical thing, but God bless him for standing up. And there's a couple basketball players that, he changed his name to Freedom. I forgot his real name, but he stood up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot his name, but his state is, and he, oh my God, but he was an NBA player. But there's some people that are standing up, man, and God bless them for doing that. We need more people.
And we need to support these people that are standing up.
We have to.
I think Hollywood is losing touch and losing relevance. I think people are staying away from it. You're seeing it with the shows, but we're also seeing Disney, stocks are down. But I really do think that it's not only a great time to be a woman, it's a great time to rise in new businesses. And you're seeing the patriotic business come in. You're seeing people that are American made and alternative media, Angel Studios who did Cabrini. Now they're skyrocketing. I just think it's like, we are done. So maybe,
oh my God, yeah.
Mark Wahlberg is standing up. I don't know if you saw the latest.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if
my
that was.
God, yeah. He refused to do a movie with Hanks, I think, right? That was, yeah.
Yeah, people were saying, is that really coming from him or was it sort of made up? I don't know.
Absolutely. No, that's him. He's smart. He got out of L.A. before they enacted that mansion tax, and he moved, I think, to Vegas or, yeah.
Yeah. I thought, wow, that's great that, some people are standing up and it's so interesting to me, Cliff, because I'm sure and maybe I can ask you, like,
please,
did you just wake up to this in the last 3 years? You realize, the pedophilia is connected to the, corruption in the government with the CDC. And I mean, do you kind of like, how did you deal with it as a man?
I think I grieved like you, because I was like, well, I wrote a book in, I think 2016 was when it came out, because I felt, because, after 9/11, and I was up at the Universal City Walk in LA as a deputy. We have a part of the Universal Studios is in the county area. So we had a substation there. And so they had the Universal Amphitheater there where they have a lot of big acts there. And so after 9/11, I mean, the amount of people that just wanted to have their picture taken with us, who just wanted to hug us. And I always tell the story that we were working at an event, and a lady was having trouble with her ticket, and I knew that her seat was right inside, so I walked her to her seat. The 6,000 people in this place, just because I was helping a lady to her seat, they started applauding. And then so then we went to the demonization of law enforcement, and the biggest proponents against bad cops are good cops. So I mean, of course we need to expose that, but the demonization of the field, that's why I felt I need to write a book. They were painting a picture as if we bring cops in off the street. When my wife was a background investigator, if you knew, 10,000 applicants, you might get 100 people out of the amount of the scrutiny that goes back to even your childhood before we hire somebody. I just wanted to paint that picture, but that's when I began to why are they, these very reporters are the ones we stand and protect at crime scenes. I don't understand why they would want to demonize the profession.
I think that you should lead the charge in that conversation, because it's so illogical to me.
Yes.
And it's not only logical, there's proof that it's not working. You've got all the blue states that are copless, that are completely burning, and people are, leaving by the droves, really. And I think that that's a really strong platform to stand, saying that there's good men. Like, that's what I think what's missing is that in the demonization of whether it's the cops or the feminist movement, it's like, do you forget that we are here because of good men? Like,
yeah, that's right.
That baffles me, because I have been married 18 years, and I have an incredible man. And I feel like they don't good men today do not get the notoriety that they deserve. And we need to empower men like you to say, Cliff, we need you literally on the forefront, because we need you to shield us. We need your voice of strength, because guess who's leading right now? Bad men.
Bad
And
man.
they're
Yeah.
who are greedy, who are, and this is why I've been speaking out about the importance of wealth.
Yes.
And this was new to me, because I come from an immigrant family, and I was like, you're just grateful to be able to make ends meet. I never dreamt of wealth. Like, and as I look at the evil that's usurping our country, to me it goes back down to greed and money.
Yes.
And I thought, stop. I get on my pastors. I'm like, stop telling people that broke is holy. I'm
No, that's
like,
right. Yeah.
we need a lot of money to
No.
counter all this evil money that's pumping into our society and our children. I'm like, women, get your home in order, be completely disciplined, make extra money with your husband for the good of our society. Like, stop. Good people that are like just doing the best that they can, like me, like, I'm like, we just want to take care of our family. You obviously want to make more enough. I'm like, gone are those days. Like,
Yeah, I know.
I
Yeah.
get really criticized for it, by the way. I mean, I get criticized for building a business as a mom. I mean, that's my critics are on the far right. Like, you can never be a good mom and be a good business. I'm like, really? Because I feel like to be a good mom, I need to lead the charge in fulfilling my God given call, as long as I don't compromise my time with my children, which is
That's
takes a
right.
lot of discipline. And
Oh
I
man.
do it. I do. I get up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm present with my children. I know, that they're my priority, my husband, my faith, my children. But I also know that our country is burning, our culture
Yes.
is burning, and now women have to rise up. And
Yes.
we cannot just be like, oh, I'm just gonna, my mom's group, all is well, as long as I'm like, gone are those days, ladies. There's a level of urgency that we need
Yes.
to do in the culture. There's no time. Sometimes there's a time for war and a time for peace, a time for planting, a time for harvesting. Right now, we are tilling the soil of our culture. And right now, yes, get your nails done, but honestly, study while you're getting your nails done. Read the church fathers, read the history, read philosophy. Like, we have got to have women in the forefront right alongside men, caring for them and fighting in a different way. And we can no longer stand in the back seat and being like, well, I just want to make sure my life is order. I don't want to be part of the fight. I don't want to watch the news. I don't want, I'm like, so good people staying silent again.
Yes. And
I know.
we're gonna serve people using money, and we're not serving money, and we're not using money. Money is the tool to serve people. And that's why the Bible says we're gonna have life more abundantly because of what we're gonna do with it. I mean, if you tithe 10%, of course God would want you to have 10 times more, because He knows what you're going to be doing with it, and your cup's always going to be full. Yeah, my wife, Matt, got 3 boys. She was bringing them. When we got together, 3 sons, and working full time as a deputy sheriff, and the things that she done, and even now. So, like, my wife doesn't need me financially. We're together because we want to be. We're married, and but we love being together. We don't
Yeah.
need to be together, but yeah. And
Not
so
even that, like the love of a man and a woman, Cliff,
yeah,
we just assume marriage is hard and perpetually a burden. We've
yeah,
sold the cross without the resurrection.
yeah,
Motherhood is hard.
yeah,
Parenting is hard. You have hard moments, but if you develop yourself, gosh, marriage is amazing.
yeah. It's fantastic. Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
when you start selling that, being a woman is it's such a gift, And that's why I think we need to shift the narrative. And that's why I think women need to be in the forefront of this, and being a champion for men,
Yes.
for marriage, for truth, for beauty, for goodness. And I just think that so much hinges on the woman's capacity to nurture society today, because hurt people hurt other people. And so the people that
That's
are,
right. Yeah.
wounding from the top down are people have been wounded. If you study the feminist movement, every single one of them who had really had a radical agenda. At first, it was some of them were good. Radical agenda came from very painful family life, very painful relationship with their fathers, and God used it for the good, fueled their ability to fight for
Yeah.
women in the workplace. It was good, but I will tell you something though. The first Not a lot of people know this, and there's a great book from Dr. Carrie Grass called The End of Woman, and
Oh, yeah.
it's basically the Bill of Rights of Women, what they call it. It's like the first writing of the feminist movement. It was created in the late 1700s, maybe early 1800s. Correct me, my dates are wrong, but it was born out of what they call a spirit table.
Yeah.
So they were basically invoking um, occult and Satan to write these um, kind of Bill of Rights for women.
Yeah.
So much actually of the feminist movement comes from a lot of the occult, which is, it's telling, and God has done, can make good out of a bad, but we just to see it for what it is. Nobody talks about that, but
Right. Yeah.
imagine if the basis of the feminist movement is really kind of rooted in satanic cult.
Yes.
That's what the spirit table is actually summoning
I
the
gotta
devil.
read that. Yeah.
Yes. So that's, and so, the devil can't create, he can only twist truth. So what he did was that something good, like I think there was a lot of abuse in women prior to the feminist movement, which is why I led them. I think there was not equal opportunity. So I think that was a good thing, but I think it was coming from a motivation of a wound. And I think that's why we need to reclaim it and say, we're going to take the good from that
Yeah.
and make it ordered towards truth,
Yeah.
and not, you know replacing men, which is so much really kind of what happened Madonna, and it's just
Ah,
a whole movement of
I
it.
think you and I and many others, we're going to have to, and listen, 10 years ago, you and I could not broadcast to the world in a way, even in better quality than some news outlets can. Now we have that opportunity. I think you and I are going to have to just be in the forefront to be doing this, because I have friends, and I'm sure you do too. They're so knowledgeable. They know what's going on. They're paying attention. They're champions for these causes, but oh, you got to come on the podcast. Well, I don't. They don't like that. They don't want to be in front of the camera, and they're not going to do it. And so they're there, but I guess we have to lead. We're willing to turn the camera on and to spread this, and so they're going to be through us, right? So I'm sure you
Yeah, I think
experienced some of that.
I think risk your reputation, and I think that's what your leadership is doing right now. I bet you people, you know I, I think probably, even though you'll have some people who don't agree with you, I think people are refreshed by leadership of standing up. And
Yes.
I always say to my children, it's not what you like to do, it's what you're called to do.
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh my
I'm like,
goodness.
I'm sure I don't really like to be in the forefront. Like, I live a very beautiful, simple life in Florida, and I
Yeah.
really would like to be in the pool instead of working, 6 hours, 7 hours a day because when my children are in school. But what I'm called to do is what fulfills me. It's not just what I like to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
And that,
awesome, January. Oh my goodness. So I want to be respectful of your time. Where can we send people? I like your channel too. You got some great videos. We got to blow that up. It's going good though. Yeah.
thank you. I'm finding the courage, and I really thank you for honoring that. It's taken me a long time to kind of be bold because for fear, honestly. And so it's courageous men and women who are rising up, and courage beats courage. So thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
And you're
probably only,
standing up for other people. I love the way you're encouraging others and you're giving thanks to them in your videos. I love it.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we're going to see a lot more of these type of people. And to me, I think we have an opportunity to be under the umbrella of one country that I
Yes.
think in biblical principles. And I get passionate about saving America because I'm only here because of the American dream.
Yeah. If you, my wife, Vivek Remus, all these people that are kind of second generation, or Mark Rubio, they know, they've seen what communism does and what it's like to live that way. And you see it, and we want to hold on to this for other people, generations, for our children's children.
Yeah, yeah. But don't come in here trying to establish your,
No.
I think of what is it, Ilan Omar?
Oh,
She's
I
in
just think
Minnesota.
that's, I don't know. It's criminal too. It's like, oh my God, I don't know why that's allowed even. I don't think it should be allowed
I,
to have it.
yeah, some of these things are just so. You know what it boils down to, D'Amico, and this is my last point, is that we've lost character.
Yes.
There's no more honesty is no longer the best policy, and it sounds so kind of like cliche, but honestly, we just don't even think that people should be truthful and honest, and we can say what we want to say. We've lost the moral fiber of what it means to be a man and woman of character.
I'm so upset about that. And so so sensitive to that. I'm holding myself to a higher and higher standard. I mean, I start little things, right? I will not put my grocery cart away no matter how far away it is. Like you remember that guy Cato? He was a Stoic, right? He was so stringent on his code of behavior that they used to quote a lot of you. He can't be a Cato because he always would do the right thing regardless of the consequences, right? We need to propagate that or promulgate it, I think, in society. Listen, I love you and what you stand for, and man, I'm going to champion you. And when my wife and I go out for Taco Tuesday tonight over a cocktail, we're going to be talking about you, and I'm going to have her check you out. And man, whatever.
I'm so grateful.
If you need me in any way, I'm going to be supporting you in the cause for training women and man, and that's getting men to stand up, and so we can all come together for these godly principles. Even if you don't believe, if you were under godly principles, we'd have a great life. Even if you weren't a believer. And so, any final words on that? Any final words?
Well, I think that if you're a man and a woman listening out there, and you want to join an army of men and women in this fight for really truth, I invite you to look at the Woman's School. We train women how to be a woman and to reclaim womanhood. We actually also have a man's school, by the way.
Oh, what? All right.
Well, yes, I know. It was born out of the women saying, "Well, we need one for men," so that we're in lockstep together. So, just invite you to join us and really to join this call. And to me, in my opinion, we're not going to be able to solve the politics in Hollywood. We have to solve it by taking interior personal responsibility towards our own interior growth. And I think that needs to be a grassroots movement towards becoming a whole version of ourselves. And that's what we teach in the Women's School, is that we're not a fractured human being. We're integrated and designed by God to be whole. And we just need to show you how. And that's what we offer in the Women's School. So join this fight. And ultimately, it's about awakening your call for such a time as this.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better. January, Donovan, hang out for a little debriefing. And listen, everybody, if you're listening or watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe on the podcast platforms. It tells the computer people are interacting, and they'll show it to more people, and we can have more people join our army for a force for good. Oh, thank you, January.